Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night. Hello, whenever you're consuming this show. Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the Daily Flock Show. Yeah, we're going to break the draft down today. We're going to break the draft down all week. We're going to break the draft down by relying on my conversations with other teams' general managers, other teams' top executives, longtime scouts, and we're going to bring you great guests as well this week because that's what we do. Flocky says, what? We're not going to throw around letter grades. We're going to try to be a little bit more nuanced and cerebral about how we evaluate this draft. And really, we're going to kind of look at pivot points, right? Inflection points where Eric DeCosta, general manager of the Ravens, could have gone one way or could have gone the other. And that's how we're going to evaluate this draft over time. Because, again, this isn't a team tanking. This isn't a team with a 3-year plan. This is a team that fired one of the more accomplished coaches in NFL history because they thought he was holding them back from their manifest destiny of winning another Super Bowl. So that's the lens we're going to view them through. The lens of today's show is on the rundown right there. We're going to look at pick 45, what they did, what they could have done. I'll give you a little bit of information about what rival evaluators are saying about Zion Young. We'll continue to discuss that through the week. Pick 80, another natural inflection point. One defensive tackle standing out from the bunch. They take a pass catcher. What's that dynamic going to look like over time? We're going to drill down on the first 5 rounds, right? They've got 8 picks there. Did they maximize that potential value? We'll have some thoughts on players they passed on and what rival executives think they did well. And then, this draft absolutely begs the question of what's next. What are you doing at center? What are you doing for swing tackle? Are you sure about your corners? They took a small slot guy late in the draft, but what about Marlon? Isn't Awuzie just like a swing guy? Is Awuzie a starting boundary corner here? What are we doing? Center. So a lot to discuss. Horrible weekend for the Orioles. We will have a full segment on tomorrow's show, on Tuesday's show, about the Orioles. But let's get into this. It's incredibly exciting. And if you saw our shows last week and you saw our shows with Marty Herney setting the draft up, longtime GM, and you saw Friday's show, right? They took Vega. We all thought they were going to take Vega, especially if Caden Proctor wasn't there. They took him over Bain, which was surprising. So that set the tone for me in a lot of ways. They took the offensive guy, which Declan Doyle needs, over D-line. I would not have guessed, though, that they would use all 11 picks. I would not have guessed that after Vega, they don't take an offensive lineman until their last pick of the draft, and that after passing on Bain, they don't take an interior defensive lineman until their penultimate pick in the draft, although I think they got a real steal there. I would not have guessed that they doubled down on receivers and tight ends in the middle of this draft. So a lot of meat on the bone, but let's start with what they did at pick 45 because we've got all you need to know about the Vega pick from last week. So let's start there. What did Jesse Minter, who's going to have to unlock the pass rush in this young man, if there is any, what did Jesse Minter, rookie head coach, think of the selection of Missouri DN/edge Zion Young at pick 45?
Yeah, Zion is a rugged, tough, physical player. I think he's just scratching the surface of what he can be as a player. I think there's a ton of upside there. Love his play style. He plays extremely hard, plays extremely physical. Is very powerful in the run game, meaning when he strikes blocks, they go the other way. When people pull on him and he strikes them, it's a train wreck. He's also proven to be I thought he made major improvements this year as a pass rusher, something he took a lot of pride in this year, improving in that area. I do think he has the ability to rush up and down the line, so he's got some versatility there, particularly as you get into third down and you want to put different guys in different spots. You want to have different types of rushers, and you look at that room now. That's a really versatile room Zion.
So, he's a power player. Exact words that a general manager used to describe him. Talked to 2 general managers at length about this selection. Both really like the kid. Both really like the fit for the Ravens. Both really like what he can bring. I would think of this selection as what was the meat that was left on the bone in terms of run defense when they chose Hendrickson over Crosby. This is now the guy who's, if you combine Young, what he can do against the run, and Hendrickson as a pass rusher, that's sort of Crosby, right? Like that's the hope. Now, this kid's not going to defend the run like Max Crosby, maybe ever, because Max Crosby's, I mean, my man Brian Baldinger thinks Max Crosby's the best run stuffing DN in the NFL and historically significant one. Is he going to rack up the tackles for losses like Crosby? Does he have quite the pterodactyl wingspan that Crosby? No, but the kid is huge. They love this body type. How much pass rush is on the bone? That's up for debate. And that's where, when I look at this pick critically, I start to wonder, because that's what pushes guys up the board. And that's why you go in the second round versus the fourth round. And I'm not sure they're going to be able to cull that from him. Even the great Jesse Minter, who did unlock Oweh with the Chargers. So I'm not discrediting that. But this checks a lot of boxes. His build, his size, his strength, and even his demeanor. Because Zion Young kind of strikes me as a throwback to a bygone era where Ravens defenders had swag. They talked a little bit, and they brought a little bit of energy to the jam. Let's hear real quickly from Zion Young, who, yeah, he talks like a Raven.
It's some fun for sure. A new personality, a guy that's very consistent. Guy that's very consistent on and off the field. I'm looking to stop. Of course, runs on first, second down, and then of course sack the quarterback on third downs, and then the rest is history.
So look, I gravitated to this kid, as he spoke to the media on My Days Are All Bleeding Together. This was Friday night. There's a lot of clay for them to mold here. Again, we've got a breakdown in depth there. And if you go to si.com/NFL/Ravens right now, you will get in-depth scouting reports from general managers on him, multiple, what they think of the pick, how he fits, but who he is. And my man Bobby DePaul, Ultimate Football Guy, if you're familiar with my past shows, he taught me sort of how to evaluate in so much as I can evaluate. He certainly taught me how to evaluate the evaluators, and he taught me how to assess value. And it's what they pay you and where they took you, and then how they frame you. And so if they want to sell the pass rush on him, they can. I have trepidation about how much of that they really got. But to me, this is Brent Urban at 270 pounds instead of 300 pounds, right? And at 6'5" instead of whatever, 6'7", than it is Judon, And if they turn it into Judon, then, hey, that's full marks to Jesse Minter. But, Chuck Smith was supposed to unlock pass rushers, and a lot of people were supposed to unlock pass rushers. And it's fair to say, with DaCosta taking a swing at edge guys, or dudes like Patrick Queen, who were destined for the edge, in the second or third round of every draft since 2019 and missing every time, it's fair to wonder about the success of this pick. And in fact, Ryan, let's put the graphic up, because I did ask these general managers, hey, when you evaluate this pick, do you have to self-scout? Do you have to understand where your blind spots are as an evaluator, and where your analytics guys just can't get it right, and whether it's a guy who had a lot of production or not much production? You look at this list here, and especially the Fergusons, the Oweys, the Ajabos, the Adisa Isaacs. Those are not great bend guys. Those are not super flexible. Those are a long-bodied, long lever type who are a little bit stiff, who don't have the bend, who most of them didn't have. I mean, you had Sack Daddy, Jalen Ferguson, RIP. And, you have Mike Green last year, who had the sacks, but he got overplayed and overexposed, and you don't really know what that's going to be. But you look, none of these guys got second contracts here. Like, none of these guys panned out. And yeah, when I ask evaluators, like, do you have to look at that if you're Eric DaCosta in that seat and say, we don't do this well, we haven't done this well? Yeah, maybe Minter changes some things, but again, I'm old enough to remember all the other. It's Wink Martindale couldn't get it done. Mike McDonald couldn't get it done. Chuck Pagano and Chuck Smith couldn't get it done. And I know Pagano's more of a secondary guy. He was a longtime defensive coordinator. He's been around a lot of great defensive players, not just Ed Reed and guys in the secondary. It's been a massive blind spot. So it's hard for me. This is not a reflection on Zion Young to give them the benefit of the doubt here. And again, because how we evaluate it, opportunity cost of what you missed out on versus what you took. I could see a tight end run coming. I'm tweeting about it in real time. I'm getting texts from executives saying, boy, Zion, nice player, but they don't pick again until 80. And it was at this point unlikely they were going to do anything to mitigating not picking again until 80. And they didn't pick again until 80. So what happened? Howie Roseman, for my money, the best executive in the NFL, who already took one of my guys, Mekhi Lemon, and traded up in the first round. He takes Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt, a couple picks after the Ravens. They got in on the tail end of what I'm just going to call edge defenders, because I'm not going to call Zion Young a pass rusher, because, again, we just set the expectations. It's the, you hope, run stuffing part of Max Crosby. If he becomes a pass rusher, great. I don't think they're going to get pass rush from him next year. It makes Mike Green the designated pass rusher. He's a starting DN. He's going to hopefully flourish more on rundowns. If they come up with some sub packages where he rushes the passer, great. But they didn't really get in on pass rush. They got the tail end of that next wave of edge. And in the process, they came to find out they lost out on a massive run on tight ends and interior offensive linemen. Let's hear what Eric DeCosta had to say in real time during the draft as he selects Zion Young, but then there go those tight ends.
Yeah, so they come in all different shapes and sizes. You know, you got your guys that can move a little bit, your H-back types, you got your Ys, you got your Fs. We are fortunate we have two tight ends on the roster right now that we feel really good about. Definitely would expect us to probably draft a tight end tomorrow at some point with 8 picks. You'd think that we'll have a chance to at least add 1 or 2 guys. There certainly was a run today. It's like it's a blessing and a curse when you're at 45 and you don't pick again until 80. You get a guy that you have at 45, you have him as a first round type of player, and then you see all these tight ends get picked between 45 and 80. So it's challenging, right? But I think we did get a playmaker on offense in Jacoby that we're really, really excited about, who brings something different to the table. And I think our challenge tomorrow will be able to go after other players that we think bring something unique to the table for us.
So this is what we're going to see over time, right? Jesse Minter, defensive mastermind, proven. Got Trey Hendrickson. We think he's getting Matabike back to some degree. Declan Doyle just turned 30, never called a play in his life, never installed an offense in his life. Comes from a Sean Payton family tree that has yet to produce a winning play caller or anybody who really distinguished themselves as an offensive coordinator, except for maybe Joe Brady, who's now the head coach of the Bills. We'll have to see. That gives me pause. And so, again, who took Eli Stowers? Howie Roseman. How's he been drafting lately? How's DeCosta been drafting lately? Gives me some pause. And they did take some tight ends, and we'll get there. But if you're wondering why I'm not gushing about this draft, this is one of the reasons why. Because I don't think any of the tight ends they got have the upside day one of Stowers. And this passing game needs somebody to win vertically for them right away. I'm not talking about blockers, to win vertically for them right away in a way that Stowers can, in a way that Marty Herney, who's, go look at his record first round picks. This was basically his number 1 tight end for where he was going to go versus Sadiq. And that's on the record before the draft. Not that he's always right. Not that anybody's always right. But many people told me they like Stowers even more than Oregon for how he's probably going to use him here. And frankly, how the Ravens would have used him. So run stuffer, we think, versus opportunity cost. So let's go to the next selection here. And at pick 80, the Ravens take Jacoby Lane, a highlight reel, one-handed catch, back shoulder fade, work the back of the end zone machine for USC. Not high-end speed, not high-end twitch, not going to win vertically down the boundary, but in tight spaces, right? In the red zone where Zay doesn't show up, this kid can go up and high point the ball. Interesting prospect. Again, does he separate? Does he do yak? Does he project to be a number 1 or even maybe a number 2? We'll see. Again, Ravens with wide receivers, way more misses than hits. DeCosta said he was going to keep swinging, and he is. And boy, he wasn't done swinging here. But how am I evaluating this pick? We talked about Dominique Orange, D tackle from Iowa State. people around this league love this player. And he went a couple picks later, pick 82 to the Minnesota Vikings, who already took a D tackle day one, who have a defensive mastermind in Brian Flores. And so Jacoby Lane, Dominique Orange, that's something I'm going to pay a lot of attention to, because I know people had a first round ish grade on Dominique Orange because this D tackle draft isn't that great. And because he does flash way more pass rush potential than most of the group, even the guys at D tackle drafted ahead of him, because he looked like such a scheme fit. One evaluator who knows this team inside out, who knows this league inside out, and who has excelled. This is a guy in real time telling me Grady Jarrett just went in the 5th round. He's a first round talent and he will eat like a first rounder. And like, this guy knows his comp for Dominique Orange, slightly smaller, Haloti Nada. Ran that by a general manager. Said, I don't know about that, but he's probably in the right hands, and Flores is the right hands. He'll probably be the best D tackle in the draft. For the Baltimore Ravens, if you're telling me, could I have Jacoby Lane or could I have Dominique Orange? Didn't Matabike just have neck surgery? And then you're telling me they're never going to take an interior D lineman until the penultimate pick of the draft. And I really love that kid based on what smart people were telling me, but he's a 7th rounder. So that's sort of the risk versus reward. I found it interesting because Jesse Minter at this part of the draft, he's talking about how big they got. But outside of Vega, they ended up not really getting big in the interior of the offensive line. And they never really got that big in defensive line. But let's hear from head coach Jesse Minter.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think certain positions like size, the traits that you're looking for, when you do look at the history of this place and the teams that have been really good, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, when you look at the edge guys that have really thrived here, guys like that have been really good. Certainly on the offensive line, you're looking for a combination of size and athleticism, which we definitely think Vega has. And then, as Eric mentioned, just getting a different type of target, for Lamar, a big guy, a big X-type receiver. When you watch this guy in the red zone make catches, that's a vision that our coaches were like, man, we could really, take advantage of that. So, I think you're always looking for the best players. Oftentimes, I do think size, is a requisite to be a really good player. So, we're definitely always looking for the best available. Yeah, it's
absolutely needed to get bigger. We wrote about this since we've been writing at Ravens on SI for 3 weeks, and we've talked about it and commented on it for years. They got a little too cute. They got a little too small. They got a little too beat up, a little too value-based, a little too red shirt year to get value 2 years down the road. They passed on a generational D tackle draft last year that was loaded with size and power and projectable pass rush interior defensive linemen. And now they passed on another one. And everything Minter's saying is true, but, they got big at situational tight end. They got big at wide receiver, where I'm not going to call them redundant. And we'll get to the 8 picks in 5 rounds in a minute. But they're certainly similar enough. And the other area that, by taking a pass catcher at 80, that they then set themselves up for a little bit of concern, and what's become, I think, the number one red flag about this draft. Eric DeCosta was asked at the end of day 2 of the draft, are you totally comfortable with not having a center on your roster?
Well, you can't make them up, right? I mean, you can't just create a center, Jeff, out of the sky and say, oh, let's take this guy. So, the board has to fall a certain way. We do have some guys we like on the 3rd day that we think are interesting players. A couple guys got picked, right? A couple good players, but there's more available. We do have centers on the roster. I think we got 3 centers on the roster right now, so there is going to be a competition. Hopefully, I think we'll have the chance to get some good players tomorrow. If the center ends up being the highest rated guy and we're on the clock, then that'll be the pick. If he's not, then that probably won't be the pick. But, it's something that you go into the draft with a lot of different needs. We've only had 3 picks, so it's kind of hard for us to fill every single need with 3 picks. I think tomorrow's a new day. We're excited about it. I think tomorrow's, we always call it the Scouts' Day, because we got opportunities to kind of go after some of those guys maybe that are under the radar. I thought last year we did a good job with some of those guys that we took. in the third day, and I'm confident that we'll do the same thing again tomorrow.
Narrator, they did not take any of those guys. Jeff is Jeff's Reback from The Athletic. Love Jeff, love his work. How dare he have the balls to ask a non-softball question in the middle of a draft in which the Ravens had yet to address maybe their most critical need, certainly one of their 3 or 4. And when you combine the lack of center with lack of D tackle, it begged those questions. I get a little perturbed when the people who make these decisions, who have 11 picks to do whatever they want with, and they ended up just taking them all again. I mean, they made one trade up in the 4th round, but they still come out of it with 11 in a suspect draft in which they said they didn't love it because of NIL and all the 5th-year guys and 6-year guys. They took some, like I told you they would. I got a little bit of problem with that sort of tone because, no, you can manipulate this how you want. Like, I can't make a center up. You could have made a move to go get a center. Again, go to my Twitter feed in real time. There's going to be a run on offensive linemen. There was 9 offensive linemen taken between pick 9 and 28. I think there were 12 offensive linemen between like 9 and 37. And there was another wave coming. Now, they didn't get in on it. Will all those guys be misses? I doubt it. Will they go out and sign a free agent center? They better. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But testy from Eric DaCosta there. So let's spin it forward. He talked about maybe, the rest of the way, maybe certainly with all those 4 5th-round picks or whatever, maybe we'll find a value guy there. Well, they didn't. And there's 2 interior offensive linemen who stood out to me, not just because of where they went, but who took them. We talked about Parker Brailsford, wrote about Parker Brailsford. I don't know what he's going to become. It's a lottery ticket. The center from Alabama. I do find it interesting, though, that the guy who takes him is Todd Monken, who spent, years in this building, left this building to become a head coach, was definitely influenced by the evaluators in this building. The Ravens have done things pretty well, certainly a lot better than the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns, who loaded up on offensive linemen, took that kid. I find it interesting. Another kid we talked about a little bit, Bo Stevens, could be a jack-of-all-trades type, a really interesting offensive lineman from Iowa who can snap the ball. Who took him? Mike McDonald. Where did he come from? What's he look at? What does he prize? The evaluator there, John Schneider, top 3 general manager in the draft, overall, but especially in the draft. Yeah, he's had some misses. They all do. But when Howie takes a guy or Schneider takes a guy who I know was on these guys' short list, I'm going to note it. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to chronicle it. So they end up using 8 picks in the first 5 rounds. Half of those picks are wide receivers or tight ends. Okay, one is the D lineman who doesn't really have pass rush. Maybe it's projectable, maybe it's not. And then Vega at 14, which that was a sweet spot that fell in their lap. So do I think they maximized the potential of what they could have done in the first 5 rounds? I mean, it's hard for me to say. When they've doubled down on a position group, we all know the story around here. The second guy's better than the first guy. And the second guy is usually really, really good. But, do they have that luxury now? Does that make sense? Jacoby Lane, okay, I get it. 6'4", whatever. But then you take another size receiver who, yeah, he can win in space and Jacoby Lane can't. But how often are Lane and Elijah Surratt? And we'll have more on him tomorrow. And there's actually more on him up at Ravens on SI right now. This general manager who we spent over an hour on this draft, which 3 value picks stuck out to him the most? Which 3 would he be most excited about if he was a Ravens fan? Whatever. Spoiler alert. Surratt is one of them. He's okay with Lane. Loves Surratt. But again, you got Lane and Surratt, and you didn't get Dominique Orange or any of those D tackles, and you didn't get anybody in this run on centers. You could have got Orange and Surratt. You make this much money. You have this much power. The owner is checked out for the most part. His words, not mine, except for now he's making a 5th-round pick. More on that tomorrow. This is where I'm not just going to slap an A or an A+ or an A-, but don't worry, everybody in the media will. They always do. They're under these guys' thumb. But, there's certain things you can't give them the benefit of the doubt on. The odds of both wide receivers and both tight ends turning out Did they need to take more swings? What do they find interior offensive linemen, or at least they used to in this stage of the draft? They do tight ends well, so I get it. He said they were going to take 2, and they did. But 2 swings at wide receiver, that clustered together, when that's been a blind spot? Zion Young's body type, of all the things you could have done there, when that's been a blind spot? I'm not going to sit here and tell you I love that I love the strategy. No one can predict exactly how the players are going to turn out. But I do know what their team expectations are, and it's Super Bowl or bust, the words that Harbaugh was afraid to say last year, and when I started putting him on the clock because he wouldn't say it. Was this a Super Bowl or bust draft? Of these 8 kids in the first 5 rounds, how many are going to be situational at best? And don't tell me it's situational at best because it's the best roster in the league, because they know it's not the best roster in the league, because they know it's got some holes in it. So again, we will dig down on these particular players a little bit more moving forward in the week. But having taken these 11 players, looking at their roster, saying who's the starting center, and I know they don't play till September, who's the swing tackle who actually has left tackle in his toolkit, are they really okay at corner? And boy, if Matabike's not right, what the hell do they do there? What did Eric DeCosta have to say at his post-draft press conference about the state of the roster, particularly at center, and work they need to do?
We do. Yeah, I mean, we don't have any agreements that would be illegal, of course. But there are always players out there that you can go after, that you'll try to talk to at some point. And the draft is really, you go through this process, and now you know what the roster looks like. So now it's easy next week to go out and say, okay, we need this, we might need this, we might need this. So I think with free agency, potentially trades, terminated players, we still, June 1st, still at risk for players to be terminated. There will opportunity for us to sign a few guys. And as you guys know, like even, I remember, I think, I don't know what year that was, but 2021, maybe 22. I was driving up to Penn State with my daughter, and we signed, I negotiated the contract for Jadeveon Clowney in the car. That was in August, so I think it was in August, right? It was in August, yeah. So those things can happen, right? And so, again, it's like we try to be patient, not be too reactive to things, not overreact, just to be patient, and we'll see what happens. Let good players fall to us. There's going to be opportunities coming along, and we'll be ready to pounce.
Yeah, they got some pouncing to do. It's not going to be Jadeveon Clowney because Zion Young checks that box. But boy, it better be a center. I've got some thoughts. They're up at Ravens on SI. We got so much great content there. I'm not just saying that. It's really been awesome to be a part of this the last 3 weeks and contribute and try to give you guys as many thoughtful pieces and perspectives as possible. They need a center. Look, I don't know the state of Graham Glasgow's body right now. There's rumors that he might retire. Here's what I know about him. He's 29. He's not 35. He excelled for Dan Campbell, who, like, if you were going to say play like a lion, it's kind of play like a raven, right? They want to be bigger, stronger, badder. They want to intimidate you. He moved to center last year. Is he as good at center as guard? No, but he can do it. I think he would fit their mentality. I think he would fit their scheme. Detroit, he played for Ben Johnson. Who did Declan Doyle apprentice under for 1 year in Chicago before he became an offensive coordinator? Dan Campbell, Sean Payton family tree. Declan Doyle, Sean Payton family tree. I'm just saying. Now, again, how close to retirement is he? Whatever. Well, we've seen them work their magic before. A guy making $6 million last year, not breaking the bank. They saved $40 million in cap space by kicking the can on Lamar another year, and we're gonna have a whole lot more to say about that starting next week. But that's somebody who, boy, oh boy, get me him on speed dial. You want to say Ethan Pulisic? There's other guys out there, but he's one who stood out for me. I think swing tackle is a huge issue. I think them coming out of this draft, using all 11 picks, not having anybody with tackle really in their toolkit. And I get it. You can't check every box, but when, a third of your picks are two positions, two positions where one, you gave a guy $13 million. I don't think he can play anymore, but you gave him $13 million and you signed somebody in free agency and you didn't do that much in free agency. Now we're taking two tight ends too. Okay. So I think they need a swing tackle, and I think they need a swing tackle badly. Am I going to sit here and tell you I love DJ Humphries and I love Cornelius Lucas? I'm not. But when you look at what's available out there, at least they've played recently. Like, I don't love it, but these guys they're not going to go out and do what I really think they should do. Go get Cam Robinson. I don't care if it costs you $10 million. They're not going to do. But if Ronnie Stanley went down, I got news for you. There goes your season. Especially given what we don't know about Declan Doyle, which is can he even do the job? I mean, the first offensive coordinator, Mike McDonald, hired couldn't do the job. He was fired 11 months later. So it happens. He better have a left tackle. He better have a serviceable to quasi-serviceable left tackle. If you think that's Rosengarten, we're not watching the same guy. So that's something. DJ Humphries, Cornelius Lucas. And yeah, I'd rather do it sooner rather than later because I'd rather, like, how much, like, Ronnie Stanley, is he going to get rep to death this offseason? New system or not? I wouldn't. So that's an area where, no, I don't want a UDFA. I don't want a college free agent. I want a veteran free agent. And we're going to talk about D-line at length tomorrow. So I left them out of this exercise. But I don't love the boundary corner situation right now. Russell Douglas, way more boundary than slot, although he can do a little slot. 6'2", nice levers, looks like a Jesse Minter corner. What's that going to cost you? Probably not that much. I want Awuzie as my third guy. I don't want Marlin on the outside at all. And Wiggins is a different sort of body type on the outside. So, yes, they took a small slot corner who I think could be really good. And again, when I say I think, it's because the people I trust are telling me they like him. They gave up more 20-yard completions than any corner tandem in the NFL last year. One's a year older, and the other one's in a new scheme. Well, they're both in a new scheme. But, I mean, they're both a year older, but Marlin is starting to look like dog years. So you can read more about those players and why I think they fit on Ravens on SI. You can find all of our content at Ravens on SI. We will be hearing from Mike Elias on this show tomorrow. What a series! What a series. Every time he opens his mouth before a series, they lose 2 out of 3. It's documented. I chronicle these things. Check it out for yourself. Tomorrow, we will dig down on the defensive tackles DaCosta needs to get ASAP. We will talk about that Bisciotti pick. Big deal, little deal, no deal. Certainly odd. We will dig down on the 3 players that a rival GM thinks the Ravens struck gold on. And we have some great guests coming up for later in the week. So thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all your sort of patronage, your viewership. And please, the best way to find everything, if you don't mind, is go to youtube.com/@BigPlayBaltimore. Please subscribe. It costs you nothing. We're going to have more videos coming up, short form videos, everything. We're just getting started here. Flocky says, what? I say, call. And we'll see you on the Daily Flack tomorrow.